1. As a backstory, I'm from Malaysia, and this story happened in one of the international airports there. I came from East Malaysia, and I was a student at one of the local universities in peninsular Malaysia. You can't travel to peninsular Malaysia by land because the peninsular and East Malaysia is separated by the South China Sea, so, of course, the fastest way to get to the peninsular is by flight, and for some reason, I really like taking the last flight of the night to get to my destination. I usually traveled alone, and I mostly keep to myself as I'm an introvert, and don't really like talking to strangers. Before that night, I haven't really encountered any problems with weird people, as the airport tended to be busy, and I always stayed in an area filled with other people minding their own business, and in flight, I would just read or listen to some music. I also tended to just ignore the person sitting next to me. One night, my flight was unfortunately delayed. We were supposed to reach our destination close to midnight, but with the delay, we would reach the airport close to 2 a.m. I remember being frustrated because I knew it would be hard to get an Uber that late. I sighed and then just decided that I would spend the night at the airport and grab an Uber the next morning to my university. No big deal, I thought. People do this all the time, I thought. So I relaxed into my seat. I forgot to mention that during the flight I was supposed to sit in the middle, but when everyone was seated and I noticed that the aisle seat was empty, I moved there. This was when I noticed the guy sitting on the window seat was acting strange. He kept looking at me and was trying to get my attention, but I ignored him with all my might, because I was just tired and don't really want to have a conversation with a stranger. I just closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. I remember it was really cold inside and was thinking about just turning off the AC on top of my seat, but didn't really want to move because then the guy would know I'm awake, and I will be forced to engage in a conversation with him. It was a 2.5-hour flight after all, and I don't want to have a conversation during the flight. Then suddenly I feel a whole lot colder than before, and I opened my eyes just a little to figure out what was going on. Then I saw the guy actually adjusting both the AC from the top of his seat, and also the AC from the middle seat to face me. I got very annoyed, but I'm not actually someone who likes to confront people for anything, so I just sucked it up and closed my eyes, even though I was now shivering, and just sort of hugged myself and continued to ignore this guy. I honestly don't know what this guy was thinking doing that to me. I thought he was done doing whatever he was doing and wouldn't bother me anymore after that, right? After all, I didn't respond to whatever the heck he was doing, even though I'm suffering in silence now from the cold. However, when the air hostess started to distribute the prepaid meals to the passengers, and he noticed that I didn't have a meal when he got his, he suddenly tapped my shoulder, and I just tensed up and looked at him in alarm because I really don't like being touched by people due to some childhood trauma, but this guy doesn't seem to notice my reaction to him and just smiled at me. "Hey, I notice that you don't have a meal, aren't you hungry? You know what, you can have my meal," he said, and I was just looking at him before saying, "No, it's okay," and smiled uncomfortably. But he insisted and even got me to lower my table, forcing me to accept his meal. Then he ordered another meal for himself and started telling me that he can't eat alone after seeing me. He said he felt sorry for me and that it was in his nature to help people. He then just watched me eating his meal with a big grin on his face. He didn't even touch his meal until after I was done. Now, if the meal wasn't prepared by the airline, and it was still sealed, I would definitely think he put something in it. But then I thought maybe I was just being paranoid, maybe he really was just trying to be helpful, even though I felt extremely uncomfortable, and he was being a little forceful. He even moved to the middle seat to be closer to me. He then asked me what my name was and told me that his name was Sam, and that he worked somewhere in the peninsula. I just nodded, and he asked me where I was from and why I was going to the peninsula. I gave him a short but honest answer just to be polite. When I told him I was a student at one of the local universities there, he then asked me how I was going to get to my university at this hour. I stupidly said, "Oh, I'm just going to spend the night at the airport, I'm used to it." "What? No, that's too dangerous for a girl as pretty as you," he said before continuing, "You know what? My brother has a place not far from the airport. Why don't you stay with me? Oh, don't worry. My sister-in-law's there. You wouldn't be alone, don't worry. I'm a good person," he said, still with that big grin on his face. I immediately became afraid and quickly said no while shaking my head. "There will be a lot of people at the airport, I'm used to it," I said, but he ignored me and began to chatter happily, not caring whether I answered him or not. At one point, he even asked me if I was single and asked for my phone number, and I just gave it to him but was planning to block his number if he ever tried to contact me or something. He even made a few comments about my looks and how he found me so cute, and that I looked so lost and he just had to say something to me. At this point, I began thinking about my options. For some reason, I didn't think about approaching one of the air hostesses for help because, technically, he hadn't done anything wrong to me. But I felt scared anyhow. I decided that I would get out as fast as I could as soon as we landed and ditch this guy, just to be safe. I don't know, maybe I'm just being an idiot, but I've had several encounters with creepy people before that was so bad that my few friends and cousin call me the weirdo magnet due to my naivete. So no, I'm not taking any chances. After all, I was a first-year university student, and I just started university, and I didn't have anyone that I can really call my friends yet. So yeah, I'm on my own. Back to the story. The plane landed, and I tried to get out as fast as I can, but I have a hand-carry luggage, and it was slowing me down. Sam was standing behind me the whole time, and once we got on the ground, he actually held my hand as if it was the most natural thing to do. I froze. I was really scared, and I honestly didn't know what to do. I absolutely hated it when people touch me. My family never hugged me, and my very few friends knew that I hate being touched, unless I tell them it's okay to touch me. And this stranger just held my hand without saying anything. I know I should do something, maybe scream for help, but I just stood there and froze like the idiot I am. I just followed this stranger. Then we walked past the toilet, and I suddenly got an idea. I told Sam I needed to go to the toilet. At first he said no time because his brother is here and we need to hurry up. But I insisted on going, and I said I really have to pee. And I wasn't lying either, so he sighed and said okay. I got hopeful. Maybe I can escape from this guy. So I started to drag my stupid luggage to the toilet. But this guy stopped me and told me he can look after my luggage for me. I said no thanks, but he just grabbed my luggage from my hand and told me to hurry up. So I walked to the toilet and stayed there for a bit, panicking. I thought about ditching my luggage and trying to escape without it, but then I remembered that my laptop was inside that luggage, and it has all the important documents that I needed for my study. I tried to call someone, but my phone was dead. I started to tear up a bit, but decided to just ditch my stupid luggage and run away somehow. But I must have taken too much time in the toilet, because then I heard someone enter and call my name. Yeah, it was Sam. My heart dropped. I slowly got out from the toilet, fully convinced that this was it for me. I'm doomed. Now you would think that I could ask for someone's help, or just approach one of the staff for help. I know I should. But as soon as he touched me, my skin crawled, and I just got really scared again. And since it was already very late, and we were really the last flight to arrive that night, there were very few staff around, and those that were working were engaged in something else, or were surrounded by other passengers probably asking for help about accommodation for the night, or something. I just watched them helplessly, hoping someone might notice my distress, but everyone just ignored me. While walking towards his brother's car, he told me to tell his brother that I am his girlfriend, and that to just stay quiet and he'll do all the talking. Then I thought maybe I could ask his brother for help, and just send me to my university instead of going to wherever this guy is planning to take me. But then I started thinking, what if his brother doesn't believe me? I mean, between family and a stranger, who would you believe, right? Plus, maybe I am being stupid and Sam was really helping me, even though he was forceful and wouldn't let go of me. Maybe he was just overly nice. Seeing no other choice, I sadly got into the car with them. Now, I'm not good with cars, but I remember the car I got into with these strangers is a black double-cabin Hilux. But I didn't see the plate number. So we drove for about an hour, and all that time I was scared, and this guy wouldn't let my hand go. I noticed the brother kept looking at me through the mirror, and I was even more scared and uncomfortable. Then they brought me to this condo. I was hoping that there really was a sister-in-law, and that all this was just a huge, stupid misunderstanding. But then his brother told me that his wife was not home, and that she was visiting some family member, and will only be back tomorrow. I don't know what to think about anymore. So Sam told me I can stay in his room, and tomorrow morning he'd take me back to my university. I didn't really want to go to his room, but I didn't really want to stay in the living room with the two men that I don't know. He showed me his room, and then handed me my luggage back, and I just locked the door. So I just sat in his bed looking at the door. My heart was pounding like mad. For a while nothing happened. Then I heard a knock on the door. I tried to be quiet because maybe whoever it was will leave me alone, thinking I had gone to sleep. "It's Sam, are you awake?" he said in a quiet voice. "I just need to talk to you for a bit." When I didn't say anything, I heard the doorknob was being turned, but I locked it so he can't get in. Then it was quiet again for a bit, until I heard the jingle of a key, and my heart dropped when I realized he had a key and was trying to get inside. I hurriedly told him to wait, and I opened the door just a bit. Sam was there smiling at me again. "Oh, I thought you were sleeping." "Why did you lock the door?" he asked. "What do you want? I'm tired. I just really want to rest." I told him and tried to shut the door, but he pushed the door and prevented me from shutting it properly. "Sam, just please leave me alone for now. I'm really tired," I told him, but he wouldn't budge. "Hey, what's wrong? I'm a really good person. You have nothing to fear from me. You can trust me." At this point, I got another idea. "Oh yeah? Prove it." "Give me your IC, Malaysian identification card." I said, and to my surprise, he said okay, and he really did give me his IC. See, I'm not lying to you. So yeah, I got his card and saw that his name really was Sam, but that doesn't mean anything. The card seems legit, but he is still a stranger to me. Long story short, he got inside the room and locked the door behind him. So it was just him and me, trapped inside the room. He tried to have a conversation with me and tried to get me to sit down with him on the bed, but as soon as he tried to get close to me, I just stood up, trying to get to the door, at which point he proceeded to grab my hand and try to get away from him, and I finally screamed and told him to go away. I don't remember much about what happened next, but the next thing I know, I heard the brother's voice calling for us and asking what happened, and he was banging on the door. Now I was crying hysterically and struggled to open the door while Sam just sat on his bed, looking at me, seemingly stunned as if he didn't do anything wrong. I finally managed to get the door open, and at this point I was sobbing and told his brother I wanted to leave now, and that I didn't want to be there anymore. Somehow I convinced his brother to just drive me to my university. Of course the gate was locked, and the security guard there told me that I had to walk to my dorm, because he can't let any car inside after midnight. And I just said it was fine and walked the rest of the way. But I didn't care, and didn't want his brother to find out where I stayed for fear that they might come back and search for me. I was exhausted and remember telling my friends back home about what happened the next day, after getting some much-needed rest, and they dismissed it, saying that I was being dramatic and that it was actually romantic. Yeah. They actually think it was romantic, and I missed a good opportunity to find a boyfriend. And I was like, what the heck? Which part was romantic? The part where he practically dragged me to come with him, even though I repeatedly said no? Or the part where he locked me in his room with him? What the actual fuck? Oh, and I still had his IC. I kind of forgot I had it with me until I arrived at my room, and kind of just lost it and cried silently. And when I realized I was still holding his damn IC, I cried harder, waking up my roommates. I didn't know them that much, but they kind of helped me, and I told them bits and pieces of what happened to me. But honestly, I just wanted to sleep and forget everything ever happened. For a week I lived in terror and refused to go out of the dorm in fear that Sam and his brother might come back. Sam did text me and call me a few times asking about his IC and asked me to hang out with him and his brother again as if nothing happened and everything was fine. And then he told me he went to my university looking for me and I freaked out. I asked my roommates to drop his card with the security guard and told Sam to just pick it up there, but he never came. I blocked his number after that. I ended up dropping out of the university a few weeks later, but for a different reason unrelated to this story, I moved back with my family to East Malaysia. Now I don't know if I'm actually being overly dramatic about what happened that night, and I don't really care if anyone believes me, but it felt good to finally get this off my chest. And I don't know what would have happened that night if I didn't scream and convince his brother to send me back to my university. But Sam, the supposedly good guy, let's never meet again. Ever. And before anyone gets too judgy in the comments, a little context about why I reacted the way I did. My childhood wasn't a happy one. I can't raise my voice. I can't say no when anyone asks me to do something even though I'm uncomfortable with it. I'm not even allowed to talk if my parents are talking. No asking questions either, just do what they've said I have to do. And the worst thing ever was when I'm playing with my siblings, and if they were being too loud, my dad would scream at me because I'm the oldest. Not allowed to have toys of my own and would just have to watch from the side when my dad bought expensive toys for my brother. Even when he wanted to share his toys with me, my dad would scream at me, telling me I will break and dirty the toys, and told me not to touch them. When doing household chores because it was my duty as a girl, he would scream at me regardless of whether I did or didn't do a good job. So I guess that's why I'm a little scared of every male that came close to me. So maybe that's why I just went with it, even though I was scared. 2. Living near Park Lane in Dallas is on the dangerous side. I try to make all my errands before dark, but sometimes there's a last-minute item to pick up. My boyfriend had a long day at work, and I offered to go to the gas station, but left my taser behind. I cross one street, walk by another set of apartments, and a black car filled with 4 men slows up with music blaring. Bass deeply shook the ground. Cue the catcalling. In response, my eyes roll, and I attempt to ignore. They loop around the section by the front office to continue following. I slow up. They turn into the apartment complex, and I think I'm in the clear. The car speeds to another outlet from the complex just ahead of me on the sidewalk. I stop completely, and it's a standoff to continued catcalling until a car honks from behind them a minute later. The car speeds up to the next turn and parks in the side lot of the gas station I'm heading for. Not sure of what to do, I freeze up and don't move, because if I head back, I lead them to my apartment complex. I debate with friends via text on what to do, as their calling me from a distance gets angry. Suddenly, I'm a bitch. I nearly call the police, but I don't have my identification on me. I wonder if it's worth risking getting a shady officer or a chance at myself. I pretend to call someone. They leave 10 minutes later after cursing me out. In a strike of stupidity, I still go to the gas station and make it home safely by some great miracle. Of course, I'm stuck looking behind myself in paranoia. Final question. Why did 4 men in a car late at night think their tactics would work? This is beyond me. 3. My father owned a tattoo shop downtown surrounded by bars, and I was usually there helping drunk customers piece together their ideas of what they wanted while the counter assistant was busy helping other customers and actually drawing up their customers' ideas. Well, it was late at night at the shop. Dad decided to stay open late since the bar next door was celebrating some kind of anniversary party or something like that. I went out to have a smoke. Even though I was not 18, I blended in well, since I had just walked out of a tattoo shop. I'm enjoying the ciggy and scrolling through a couple messages from friends when I hear an odd crackling older man's voice say, "You got an extra one of those?" I looked up, expecting it to be one of the guys from the shop just being funny and trying to creep me out. I was wrong. The guy standing in front of me looked like he had just crawled out of an abandoned building's basement. He had no coat on, which was odd because it was maybe about 14 degrees Fahrenheit that evening. I quickly responded, "I'm sorry I don't. I borrowed this from a friend." I was not even halfway done, but I wanted to put it out and go inside. The guy stood there looking at me. I avoided eye contact, unsure what to do. There were people standing on the corner outside of the bar, but I didn't really want to panic and make a scene. He continued to ask me more personal questions like, "Are you getting ink done?" And always guaranteed to make your skin crawl. "Are you here alone?" "No, I'm here with a friend," I said quickly. I should probably get back inside. "You can have this if you want." I handed him the cig, and he immediately put it to his mouth, and took such a long drag that the cig was almost done. I felt very creeped out and said, "Have a good night," and went back inside. I told my friend Renee about the strange guy outside, and she went out with me so I could have another. At first it seemed like the guy had left, so I felt relieved and was chatting and having a good time joking with Renee about the guys inside that kept staring at Renee and I. That's when I noticed something on the other side of the street, moving in the bushes. "Do you see that?" I said, grabbing Renee's arm and pulling her close so she could see where I was pointing. "Probably just another opossum. Let's get back inside, it's cold." She dragged me inside, and as the door shut, I could see it was bigger than an opossum, but more like a human. I shook it off and decided I was just tired and still creeped out. It was about 4 a.m. when the shop finally closed, and I insisted on walking home since Renee had to drive 45 minutes in the opposite direction. I really enjoyed late-night walks, but after Renee pulled away and drove out of view, I felt very uncomfortable being alone, and my phone died earlier, so I couldn't call anyone. Why I didn't charge it, I will never understand. My house was only about 5 blocks from the shop, so it would only take me 15 minutes to get there, 12 if I walked fast enough. The night was actually pretty scary without music to kill the silence. I only made it about 2 blocks when I noticed a slight clinking sound, that of an old car's engine. I almost froze in my place when I realized someone was behind me with their headlights off. Just keep going, I told myself. It's probably some drunk idiot from the bar who forgot to turn on his headlights. I kept going, trying not to seem like I noticed. I wanted to turn around and look so bad, but I was terrified. The person was driving slow enough that they didn't pass me for about another block. Finally, the truck turned on their headlights and sped up past me, and turned at the next corner. But I noticed the driver. My heart stopped, and I froze in my footsteps. It was the same guy from earlier who asked me for the cig. He stared at me. I think I could see dark, glossy eyes in the darkness of his truck, and a few shadows on his face. He looked back at me, making eye contact with a sinister grin. I waited a few seconds, long enough that he would have already turned onto the next street. I walked as fast as I could until I was finally at the corner, 1 block exactly from my house. I could see it. I was almost there. What happened next will forever be one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. As I was crossing the street, a guy's voice called out from the darkness, "Hey, you, come here." I looked over and was horrified. The man was getting out of his truck and beginning to walk towards me. I started walking backwards towards my house still. "I am calling the police," I yelled. For some reason, even though my phone was dead, and I took off running so fast towards my house. Thinking smart, I didn't go straight to my house. I turned the next corner, made sure he wasn't behind me, and snuck into my neighbor's backyard. I was so scared I began to shake, and even though it was freezing temperatures, I was burning up in my heavy jacket. I waited what seemed like half an hour and decided it would be safe to go into my house. I watched out the window of the door that led straight to the basement. I waited a few minutes in the black hallway, and there he was. The man in the truck was driving really slow with his lights off still. I've never seen that man again anywhere around town, but I will always remember the look on his face as he stared me down like I was a fresh cut of meat, and I stopped walking home so late. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 520. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. If you yourself have a story you'd like to send in, providing it's your own story, of course, then please do send it along to kingofthecities@gmail.com, whether it be true, scary, glitch, or anything else I might happen to do. Okay, I'm losing kind of track of time here. When does this one go up? It goes up on... Oh, it goes up in the 3rd, I think. Yeah, the 3rd, that's fine. And well, that's August already. Eesh. Oh, I wonder. There's a book, the latest in a book series I like. I think this book 5. Let me think. There was a Study in Brimstone, Hellhound of the Baskervilles, My Grave Ritual, The Sign of 9. Yeah, this will be the 5th one. It's a series of books called Warlock Holmes. They're Sherlock Holmes parodies in which Holmes is very powerful, but not overly... I don't want to say stupid, that's definitely not the right way to describe him, but certainly not familiar with the nuances of everyday life is probably a good way to put it. He's good at what he's good at, he knows what he knows, but he's certainly no master detective. Although Watson, on the other hand, is very intelligent and quite a good detective, so working together they make a hell of a team. That's the take on it in these books. And the new one's out on August 4th, having been pushed back, unless it gets pushed back again, I'm not sure, but it's meant to be out on August 4th. And still, that should be both the book and the audiobook, and the book is available for pre-order on Amazon. and the audiobook is available on Amazon US for pre-order, but it's not available on Amazon UK, which always seems to be the case with them now. And there's a different distributor in the UK, to be clear, but I don't see why there isn't even any information regarding this book. So I'm hoping it just shows up, it just drops, because the last time it took about 3 months later for the thing to show up. That's after it having been already delayed this year at all. So it could well be end of the year if it comes out for me at all. Maybe even next year, which would be disappointing, and I'm really looking forward to it. Well, that's enough grumbling from me. With that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.